Dave and I are on the way to launch the Green Machine now. It's getting a little bit dark, but we'll see how we go.
Saving the lights to the last minute.
Yeah, it's a good chance to test the docking light. And nav lights.
And the engine.
And the engine.
And the seat.
If you're going to try a boat for the first time, do it at night, so if you break down, it's not embarrassing, no one can see you. It's a tip. Not a very good tip. It's a tip.
Policy.
You excited, Pedley?
I'm very excited.
Pedley? Oh. You want one? It's a land-going Green Machine. At least the boat ramp looked empty. Any last words of advice, Pedley?
Trust my reversing.
Trust your reversing. I will trust your reversing. Still a bit of priming. Yeah, all good pedals. Well, here we go. Fortunately, the wind's dropped down a little bit tonight, which is nice. It's been really windy the last few days, so it's nice to get out into slightly calmer water. Bit of a breeze, but nothing too bad. Hang on. I'll trim it down. See if it starts. Hey. We even got telltale.
You're technically loose now.
Yep.
Just push it off.
Alright, hang on. Chuck it in reverse.
Do that.
Hey! We're floating! Alright, I'll see you, Brookie. So here we are, you know. The motor seems to be running quite nicely. I'll go and do some speed runs soon on the way down to Brooklyn, and we'll see what kind of speed we get out of this motor with this hull. I'm going to finish doing this sort of test of the boat in daylight. Obviously it's getting quite dark now, but so far so good. If it's sunk in the morning, it won't be a second after this video. Oh, better put my nav lights on too. It's getting dark. There we go. Look at that. Legit. Alright, let's head downriver under the bridge and we'll go pick Dave up. Motor ran really nicely. I left my phone in Pedley's car, so I couldn't check the speed, but when I meet up with him, I'll grab it and we'll see how we go. Well, I made it back to Brooklyn just fine. The logistics of meeting up with Dave and going for a run that night didn't work out so well, but that's okay. I'll show you around the boat now it's daylight anyway, and we'll go for another run. A few things have changed since the last video that I'll be showing some videos on. One main thing that I did film is installing the docking lights. They worked out really well, but I'm going to have a separate video on those. And I didn't want to get that video out until I was able to test them on the water. So that video will be more complete. Anyway, so that'll be coming probably next week, I think. Also put the cushions in. So we've got those 2 cushions against the toolbox and then one on the bench seat. So I'm pretty happy with how they came out as well. Well, the kookaburras are going nuts about something. One other thing I think worked really well was having the lid on the toolbox facing this way. It means it's really easy for me to sit in the front seat, grab things out, and access everything there. So I think that worked out a lot better than expected as well. I mean, I always thought it was going to be a good spot, but I thought perhaps I might be trying to access things from the back of the boat more often because you're sort of sitting there, but the reality is you spend 99% of the time here, so it's perfect for throwing jackets, hats, whatever you might take with you on the water, and being able to get it without even getting out of the seat. I mounted the fire extinguisher just to the side of the toolbox, so that's nice and accessible should I need it. On the dash here I've also fitted a compass and a fuel gauge, but neither of those are wired up properly yet, so I'll do videos on the wiring of those. Other than that, I think you've seen everything else. There's the bilge pump, obviously we did. Got the anchor sitting in a milk crate, and the water separating fuel filter, nav lights, and of course the new motor. So let's fire it up and see how she goes. The trim tilt still seems to be working perfectly, and it seems to be starting quite nicely too. No need to choke this particular motor because it's got one of those sort of auto enrichment prime start type arrangements on it. I've just putted over to this little excavation to get out of the wind a bit, but what I'm thinking we'll do next is go for a bit of a run between the bridges, and I'll show you a little GPS app I got on the phone just to see what speed the boat does with this new motor. This is the phone app I'm going to use to measure our speed. I've actually tested this against a few other quite expensive units and it's amazingly accurate, so we'll see what it says. From memory, the old Yamaha used to do about 25 knots, but it was 50 and this is a 40, so we'll see what difference it makes. Alright, let's go for a run. So that run then peaked at 25 knots, so pretty much the same speed as the Yamaha. The Yamaha was a bit older, I think had done a lot more hours. This had sunk once after about 300 hours. I think the Yamaha had sunk about 3 times after thousands of hours. So although I've never actually done a compression test on this, I'm imagining it's got higher compression and probably in slightly better condition. Possibly a bit lighter as well. So it looks like we've come out pretty much even. This boat's a little bit light, so it gets a bit bouncy even when it's trimmed all the way down. If you trim it up, it starts to get very light in the nose and starts to porpoise a little bit. So I don't think I'll do a lot of full speed running unless it's incredibly calm, because it's just not comfortable anyway. So at the end of the day, any more power I think would just be a waste. One thing I will say about having the 40 though is I went to play a local football match the other day and had 3 other teammates in the boat, and it's still playing quite nicely with 4 adults in it. So I think that just goes to show it's pretty much perfectly matched. One other thing I'll say is that now I've stopped to film this little section, I'm starting to drift back towards where I came from, which means we were heading into an outgoing tide, probably doing 1 knot or something. So I'd say the top speed of this probably in slack tide would be about 26 knots or something, so possibly even a little bit faster than the Yamaha. Alright, well we'll just fire the boat back up now and I'll putt back to the pontoon, and then I'll just quickly show you through a few things that were on the board that I didn't get to do this time round. I really kind of need to get the boat back in the water, so I couldn't get through everything unfortunately, but I think there's still things that I will do down the track, so I'll show you what those are. The main things I didn't get through were kind of the bow, the windscreen, all that sort of structural stuff. also things I would call more a luxury. The essential things I needed obviously was the motor, the bilge pump, the fuel filters, all that sort of very functional stuff. But I'll show you what's happening up at the bow. This big dent at the bow is one thing I never got around to fixing. It's just a cosmetic problem really. It's well above the waterline. There's no real issues with it cutting through the water or taking on water or anything like that. But definitely something I would like to fix up one day. The other thing I never got around to was a windscreen. I originally had plans to put some tabs onto these bars and just have a sheet of Perspex that went across. I also had a plan for what I was calling the glove box, which was going to be a metal box that came up here, went across and down, and then I would actually cut the windscreen around it. I think I'd still like to do all of that. My only real concern is how much having a windscreen makes it difficult to step over the bow of the boat, because that is how I get out of this boat. It ties bow up to the wharf at the other side. So I've got to really consider access in doing that windscreen. Because this bar is continuous, I can't have a traditional sort of split windscreen like you might have in a bow rider, but I'll think of something. Well, thanks for watching. That pretty much wraps it up for today. Another thing I do want to do in the future is I still never did a carburetor balance on this. It's a video I've been wanting to do for ages and something I definitely want to do this motor as well because I think I could use it. It doesn't sound quite as smooth as I'd like it to. I'm also going to have a look. I think there's a little problem with one of the HT leads. It seems to lose spark on one cylinder intermittently, particularly after going for quicker runs where the boat's bouncing around. So I do think it's a physical connection somewhere. So I'll slowly try and track that down as well. I may have mentioned earlier I did do a video on installing the docking lights as well as testing them at night. So I'll have that video up next weekend. And then after that, we'll sort of be back into the general sort of repair videos. All right, well, thanks for following along with this project and I'll catch you next week. See ya.